Welcome everybody to Radicalized Truth Survives. We are on episode 40, and boy, is that a milestone, and boy, do we have an episode for you. We're a powerful little show is all I can say. We have our friend Zarina Zabrisky reporting from the kinetic front lines. As you guys know, we are an investigative show about disinformation, and we report from the virtual front lines. And as we talk about the virtual world and the real world have merged, and this is the urgency of our war. But Zarina, who just got back from Chernobyl and is right now reporting from Odesa, has a lot to share with our viewers, and we are so blessed to have her back. Can't wait to get to that part of our show. In the meantime, of course, I'm here with my mates, Hi-Fi and Jim Stewartson, incredible investigators on disinformation et al. And without further ado, let's jump into Front Loaded.
Front Loaded.
So I've been obsessively listening to a lot of Zarina's reports from Ukraine. And one of the reports I noticed, they no longer refer to anybody who is a propagandist as anything but Russian proxy says. Russian proxy says. So I want to start the show with a media tip. We've had this issue during a propaganda war with reporting. Paul Manafort says, Mike Flynn says, whatever. What I want to say is that our new mandate for hopefully our show as well as media, I've blasted this out to our friends at Media and Democracy. Russian proxy, Mike Flynn says. Russian proxy, Paul Manafort says. Russian proxy, Don Jr. says. Stop parroting them as if they're not fucking Russian propagandists. And I get heated when I talk about media, but we've had a dysfunction going on for some time. And it's the world that I was, that I've been in since 1985. And I feel like every time we can get a little bit better at what we do, we got to share it. And I hope you guys agree.
Absolutely agree. I mean, let's be honest. The main media that shapes public opinion is owned by corporations. Corporations are by nature capitalist. Capitalism lends itself towards authoritarianism. And these corporations need to be called out on their behavior.
Well, these corporations are not going to like authoritarianism, okay? So, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's another dynamic, which is that the reason why a lot of these fucking press don't label these people as Russian propagandists is because some of the press are Russian propagandists. Like, let's be real clear.
Word.
A lot of that propaganda has worked, right, to cover up for people like Mike Flynn, to cover up for the real, what the real psychological war is that's going on in America right now. So there is a lot of sort of unfucking that has to happen in the press in order for things to really come to the public. But our job is to just keep putting the press out there until the truth out there until they fucking figure it out.
Thank you so much. And moving right along here, because I stacked front loaded because there's some quick things I want to do that'll, I think, work thematically for our show. As always, I'm catching up between the cracks of my life, reading all of Jim's reporting as well. Jim tipped me off to the nuclear grooming that's going on. And we had a nuclear groomer account that he highlighted in one of his blogs. You just showed that. I don't know what to say and why Twitter would do this, but you have some, as I wrote, some Putin-loving propagandists grooming people to think nuclear war is yoked. Like, what is that? What is that? Look at what's happening. 330 likes from an account yesterday, and essentially, getting everybody excited about a frickin' nuclear holocaust. Jim, what the fuck?
That's an account that used to be called Bronze Age Pervert. And it's a trad account. So traditionalism is Bannon's and Dugan, for that matter, is their idea that we need to go back to 500 years in the past when women were suppressed and it was white man's paradise. That is what that account is pushing all the time. Straight racism, like N-word, all the everything, and it's just it's got 43,000 fucking followers, and Twitter didn't give a shit, right? Like I'm the dangerous one, right? Like that's what's going on, you know, over there. That account is extraordinarily dangerous and really indicative of how pernicious Bannon, Dugan, Evola's philosophy is here, which is this nihilistic approach that says, in order to get back to our white man's paradise, we've got to fucking, you know, commit genocide. And that account is just right out there in front saying that's what we should do. And well, in my opinion, that is not okay. That thing needs to be fucking taken down immediately.
Shut the fuck down. Okay, so Twitter, let's see if there's anybody left there who actually gives a shit about saving the world in any sense, because that for that to be allowed to exist is absolutely horrendous. And clearly there has to be some sort of, we talk about regulations and hate speech and laws and stochastic terrorism. When are they going to catch up with the virtual world? Now would be a really good time, which we will talk more about when Zarina shows up. And again, I'm feisty Heidi again today. I don't know what to say. High five.
Well, it's not just Twitter, but it's eBay too, right?
Well, so that's my point. So I went with a woman that I adore and work with to a Duran Duran concert at the Hollywood Bowl, which I'll share a little bit about in a minute because there's some important stuff. But because she was wearing the most badass Love and Rocket shirt that I've ever seen from 1989, I had to try to find one because I am now the world's oldest teenager and obsessed with restocking my band shirt collection. Because I was looking for a vintage Love and Rocket shirt, what happened? All of a sudden, I am getting algorithmically pushed toward all this nuclear MAGA shit, all this fucking anti-Biden shit, all this horrific shit which should linger nowhere but the utter bowels of the dark web somewhere. Why is this happening on eBay? eBay, I'm calling you the fuck out too. I don't want to see that shit. I don't want you to try to sell me that shit. And the nuclear MAGA shirt that I just showed you is one of the least offensive from what the algorithm pushed me toward.
I just want to point something out here real fast that the person who came up on eBay, Pierre Omidyar, also bought PayPal from Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. And
we have an infection. We need to care more. Jim.
So I wanted to. So I've written some stuff about this nuclear grooming, and that's really a good term for it. There's an account called Ultra Nuclear MAGA Q, and all it fucking does is groom people for mass death and suicide in between, like Britney Spears posts. Straight out of the Kremlin. There is an absolutely a grooming, a preparation for something. Now, this may just be propaganda, right? We don't fucking know. But given Putin's ideology and his desperation, it's something to be taken seriously. I also need to recommend Dave Troy's feed, please.
Yes.
He's writing a lot about this, and I'm privileged to be, with him in some of this research. And I also want to shout out to my dear friend Kanan, who is helping with that.
Thank you so much. I've been checking.
We should have Dave back.
Yeah, back. Absolutely. Maybe we'll do that next week. It's very important. We're not playing. This show's not playing. You guys saw our incredible interview with Alex Winter on the YouTube Effect, and that's given a lot of people a lot to think about. And again, we talked a bit about algorithms, and here we are again. I don't want to see it, eBay. Okay. I don't want to see it is all I'm saying. But luckily I can go to Amoeba here in Hollywood and get my band shirt. So, I'll be all right, but fuck that shit. Okay. So super quick. And this plays into what Jim was basically just talking about. We did a little bit on this on Radpod and Chill, but I want to make sure we don't assume every viewer sees every episode. So I want to make sure that we're aware. there was an informant who worked with the FSB who was embedded in Navalny's camp. And it's very important that people are eyes wide open on, he said that the FSB was, the FSB spies are embedded in just about every movement that is working against the Kremlin or even working on behalf of democracy. He said there were hundreds and hundreds of people like him, not only embedded in, the high ranks of Navalny's leadership, but in any organization, so many organizations. And he said it was global. So Americans, please be aware. I'm on the political front lines in my community. There are many people all across this land doing the work of democracy. Please be aware that these informants are cheap. They're everywhere. And this young man who had to defect to the Netherlands in order to tell his story wants us to know that he hated the FSB and he hated these people. And he tried very hard to tell as little as possible. And he tried very hard to protect the people that he worked with. And I just, eyes wide open is all I'm saying. Yeah, I just want to end front loaded right now on a joke that my son told me, because I like to end on something that makes Jim laugh or groan. I like to make Jim laugh. My son called me the other day and he said, "Mom, what do you call a Nazi cowboy?" Fascist gun in the West. I love my kids. Clearly my kids.
Wow,
right.
that is a high-end dad joke right there.
I'm putting that in my dad joke holster right there. It's yeah. All right. Our word phrase of the week this week. This one actually comes to us from one of our favorite people, Ruth Ben-Ghiat. Deprofessionalization.
Yeah. Right.
Process by which members of a high status occupation lose the facility to have blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? That means that professionals, the learned professionals, be they doctors or teachers, lawyers, they are removed from holding sway over their profession, and it can be infiltrated by bad actors.
That's right. And she writes a lot about that in Strongman, or she writes about this phenomenon in Strongman as it relates to the military. It's part and parcel of demoralization as well. The deprofessionalization and demoralization go hand in hand. And yes.
This is the always the plan of dictators and fascists, which is it's more than just deprofessionalization, it's de-education, right? That's why they are attacking public education. That's why Peter Thiel has spent fucking decades attacking the education system, attacking the idea that everybody should go to college. It's because they literally believe in a feudalist society where there are stratas of society that people are assigned to, and they believe that there is a scientific basis for some people not being able to learn as well as others. That's what comes out of the Manhattan Institute. That's what comes out of these fucking racist institutions that have been putting this poison that the education system is somehow indoctrinating our children, right?
Right.
That's what all of this is fucking about. And if you look at the anti-vax movement, right? What did they do? Like doctors suddenly are telling you that you should take fucking snake oil, right? They get doctors and they deprofessionalize all the doctors because they put these people up with MDs that are saying absolute bullshit to people.
Right.
And it is one of the most dangerous things that can happen. Not to mention lawfare, right? Like lawyers now suddenly are enemy combatants, right?
Yeah,
they're going to the fucking Supreme Court and saying that you should overturn the election. So yes, deprofessionalization is not only a symptom, but it's a weapon.
Absolutely. And her direct line in the book, valuing loyalty over expertise and allowing violence to become an end in itself, can result in a deprofessionalized and demoralized military, especially if misguided wars end in defeat. And you can insert military, as you were saying, education, whatever. But what it made me think of, quite frankly, in the valuing loyalty over expertise, do you remember the people that Trump put in to his cabinet and positions of power and all across the land in the judiciary? I mean, literally loyal hacks who are absolutely unequivocally unqualified for the role, and their only qualification was how far their head was up Trump's ass.
I love the poorly educated. Anybody remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good choice, Hi-Fi.
Yep. All right. Let's move along. Why it matters.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter? By high fidelity.
First story this week. AI is coming for your artists. And this has to do with a story in Ars Technica, where they're talking about image generating artificial intelligence that is trained on certain types of artists' art, large, huge, massive data sets of images, and then based on text prompts can generate images such as these you see here. Eventually, these are incredibly dangerous because, well, it's altered reality, and it's getting so good that you won't be able to tell them apart, right? So that's why it matters.
Which is why I will be living. I was going to say, which is why I will be living in a yurt in my future with no Wi-Fi.
I mean, this is an important topic to me in my real life. I do a lot of work with AI, both because it's incredibly magical. It's amazing what we can do now, but also because it's the front line. It's the next generation of this war. The AI that I work with is almost indistinguishable from talking to a person. It feels very, very close to the Turing test, which is not being able to tell the difference. And it's the same thing with these visual models, these large visual models that will be able to basically produce any image that you can describe to it, and do it in a photorealistic way. We're going to need to change the entire way that we consume information, because there's going to be no guarantee whatsoever that the information you get is real at all.
Right. It's very important. Thank you for the fairly warned, be you, says I, and we. So we are fairly warned.
And I just want to point out, Jim, I am right there with you, because back in October of 2020, I was doing this.
I love it.
Oh, wow,
so seductive.
So seductive.
Very, very seductive.
It was the beard. It was the beard. Yeah. Well,
And now you got your cute girlish face. It's look at you. Look at you.
I can't help it. I'm so good, pretty. Man. It's not my fault. It's not
looking good, man.
You are pretty. Yes, so pretty.
All right. Let's see.
I have a picture. I have a picture from Hi-Fi in high school that one day we will have to whip out.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that.
Pretty boy nerd days. Anyway, next story. Next story is Scientology Slaves, and this is dark stuff. There is a type of visa known as an R1 visa. It is a religious visa. There's a lot of laws that dictate how it's supposed to be used, and it's supposed to be used for religious work. However, Scientology has used this as a loophole to bring in approximately 4,100 people and has subjected them to basically slave labor conditions, working 14, 18, sometimes 24-hour days, doing manual labor, construction, washing dishes, cleaning, scrubbing toilets. This is not religious work, but they are bringing people from all over the world to the United States to do this, including about 600 from Moscow.
Yeah.
Why
I
does
mean, let's
this
be
matter?
clear. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, it's a cult importing slave labor. That's kind of why it matters.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, this is the fundamental projection of all of this, right? Is, why do they talk about human trafficking so much? Why do they talk about, these crimes? It's because they're fucking doing it, right? This is human trafficking on a massive scale. These people were being paid $8 to $50 a week for this sort of conditions. They were slaves. They are slaves. There are indentured servants in Clearwater right now, and at different Scientology locations all across the world. This fucking cult needs to get shut down. To be clear, Lee Dundas, who is the lead lawyer for Scientology, has been on Mike Flynn's QAnon PSYOPs tour for over a year now. Was at the insurrection with the fucking bullhorn telling people to go into the Capitol. Yeah. So let's be super clear about Scientology. It is an anti-American death cult, just like MAGA is. It just happens to be older and has Tom Cruise. It needs to get shut the fuck down.
Well, speaking of Cruise,
my face when all the cults are culting together.
Very nice high-five. No, speaking of Cruise, this is a terrible segue, but as I mentioned to you guys in the rundown meeting, I did a ton of reporting on cruise crimes. It's very important because these cruise ships are able to wave a flag of Liberia and other countries, so they are not held under U.S. jurisdiction. Everything that happens in international waters becomes the problem of the FBI as it relates to America, and they don't have time to deal with every person gone missing. And there were tons and tons of crimes and rapes. It became very commonplace. Why I bring it up is that this is the exact reporting I was doing a decade or so ago on how they curate people from different countries that are often impoverished and struggling, take away the employee passports as soon as they show up, and then they become essentially the equivalent of an indentured servant. This is very, very common, and it's a bit chilling to hear the parallel between what you're describing and what I understand about the cruise ship industry.
Well, I mean, they're in Clearwater, Florida. They're in cruise ship land, so God knows. But what Hi-Fi said is important to reemphasize. 650 or something of these people were brought over from Russia. And some of them were like inserted by the Russians into that pipeline, right? So imagine a better way of getting Russian spies into the United States than through an anti-American death cult who is perfectly willing to, bring them over on an R1 visa.
Yeah, they're exploiting religion for nefarious means, period.
Well, that brings us to our next malignant mess.
Meta's malignant mess. It's our final story this week. This is actually a combination of a couple stories. I'm just going to go with two. But the first one is, this should make everyone happy. Senior Facebook engineers say no one knows where the data is.
So can I just say, dude, where's my data?
Dude, where's my data?
This guy was on Joe Rogan last week. He was on Joe Rogan last week making up shit
doing
about fucking Hunter Biden's laptop.
That is what Joe Rogan's purpose is, why he got the $100 million contract. That is his purpose, to platform guys like this, Elon Musk, whitewash these dudes, clearly.
Spreading bullshit fucking narratives. Well, okay, why this matters, this story specifically. We know from the movie The Great Hack that, massive amounts of data ended up at Cambridge Analytica. Who was Cambridge Analytica? That was Steve Bannon. We also know that Michael Flynn had a position at SCL, which is the parent company of Cambridge Analytica. I don't know how much more obvious it needs to be that our data is being exploited to target us for operations online.
And who gave Mark Zuckerberg the first $500,000 to start Facebook and was on the board of directors until just a few months ago?
The
Peter
lizard.
fucking Thiel.
Yes, PFT. Thank you.
Our viewers know him as the lizard.
The lizard. That's right. All right. And then hold on. There's a second part to this story,
but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. Meta had a team that was potential harms to society. It was a risk assessment, right? And I would say that even though this team was overworked, they were helping. And now Meta has taken it upon themselves to dissolve this team right before the midterm elections. And as we have previously discussed, Meta has reduced their election misinformation team by about 60%. So, yeah.
Well done.
I mean, listen. Facebook, the top 10 stories on Facebook throughout the 2020, while the QAnon, the big lie was going on, it was fucking Dan Bongino, fucking all like it was amazing. Like 7 out of 10 stories for some reason in the top 10 were always Dan fucking Bongino, and the other ones were Fox or some like right wing horrendous shit. And then January 8th, when they canceled Trump, the top 10 Facebook stories suddenly all of a sudden became like normal. Yeah, there's like a Fox one in there, but it was like CNN, it was like normal. It was a combination of the various things. And it's because there's a fucking button. They have a button, and the button is, we want more fascism now. We want more radicalization. We need to make more money from our fucking advertisers. And these assholes who are literally taking the team that is responsible for making sure that people don't get hurt offline needs to be fucking held responsible. Mark Zuckerberg needs to be fucking indicted. I am really, really sick of this guy getting fucking whitewashed by everyone. He's been in league with these bastards since the beginning.
Yeah. Welcome to Jim's first TED Talk of the episode. That was amazing.
Well, hey, since we're already there, let's get into the next part of Jim's TED Talk and just go right to Hellscape.
Jim Stewartson's Hellscape. Oh, fuck.
Jimmy be muted.
Jim's pulling a boomer moment.
Jim be muted. It's not a boomer
Here, we'll just cut right
to
this. We'll just cut right to this. Start again.
Okay.
3, 2.
Whoa, I didn't mean to do that either. Okay, boomer.
I almost had to tweet out your okay boomer. It was hilarious when you were doing commentary. I almost died. Almost fell out of my chair.
3, 2. Ready.
Hey everyone. So today I'm going to be short because I want to just give us time for Zarina, who is unbelievable. But I wanted to just talk real briefly about what I'm calling the weepening The weakening is what happens when a whole bunch of terrorists and propagandists and controlled opposition starts to get pressured, starts to understand that they are in deep, deep shit. So the entire cult right now is crying and whining at every possibility about how they are being victimized. And there are two things about that. One is it does radicalize the cult, but it also is a confession, right?
Yes.
So Bannon crying about how 35 of Trump's co-conspirators got a door knock. Mike Flynn screeching his brains out about how he's not Q and you know, just lying through his teeth, despite all evidence to the contrary, despite now, you know, a documentary on Vice, a documentary that's coming out on PBS, not to mention my own, who have, you know, identified this guy, you know, as a anti-American traitor for many, many years, right? So this is maybe my favorite thing that has happened recently, in a way, right? Mike Flynn is so nervous and so anxious about the Vice documentary, which, you know, effectively identifies him correctly as Q, is now saying, and this argument is incredible. What he's saying is, I am amazing at psyops. He literally says this. I'm amazing at outright lying, misinformation, disinformation, and psyops. I've done it in 27 countries. That's what he said. But QAnon, and he says QAnon because he's trying to be cute. QAnon was a government psyop. I had nothing to do with it. I was a government psyop. The fascinating thing about that is, who was the government?
Yes.
Who was the government? The government was fucking Trump.
They
Can I
can't
point something
help
out?
but confess. They can't help but confess. Go ahead.
I have to point something out. We have video of Mike Flynn being a smartass, and people go, "What do you think about QAnon?" Oh, you mean Blue Anon? He knows how to pronounce it. He is intentionally misdirecting with that ignorant mispronunciation. Intentionally.
It's not
even subtle.
He's winking and nodding. The good news is, though, that, you know, a lot of the cult doesn't know that. Right. So there's a lot of crying. And this I have to say is one of my favorite videos that I've ever made. It's very simple. It's this guy, PJ Schrantz, who did this fucking event, the Texas Never Forgets dinner event, where you're supposed to spend $911 to see every fucking traitor, the worst traitors in American history. Fucking Rudy Giuliani, Mike Flynn, Bernie Kerik, just a cavalcade of psychotic transnational criminals. And he wanted people to pay $911 to go there. And I advertised for him the venue's contact information because he did. And so I figured I'd help him. And the venue canceled, or because he couldn't make any money. So I don't know. I'm not taking necessarily credit, but there is definitely a lot of grumpiness in the cult, to say the least.
Yes.
And then just to finalize, speaking of Flynn's lie, I'm now calling it Qgate, because the whole cult is really, really upset with him. So here's Joe Flynn on Patriot Soapbox, which is literally where Q drops were being made and where the grift was happening in 2018. Yeah. This is him on Patriot Soapbox with Q drops in the fucking corner for an hour and a half, raising money for his brother.
Yeah.
On October 9th, 2018. So do not give me this bullshit about how you did not know what Q is. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
You're 3 years ago, he signed his name Q. Shut up.
Yeah.
So, but the good news is, again, like, his cult is getting very, very upset because Satan Gate is still going on. They're still trying to figure out why the fuck he did this fascist cult prayer in a Christian church, and they're getting mad. Patriot Voice, 7 Lab. What? That was the end for me, right? So I wrote another piece, and I'm going to go back to just me for a second, and I'll wrap this up. I wrote a piece just before we started recording called "The Truth Hurts."
Yeah.
And that is by design. Frankly, like, I'm hurting you with the truth, all of you guys, and I'm going to keep doing it. The show's going to keep doing it. All of us together, this fucking country is going to keep doing it. We're going to keep hitting you with the truth. We're going to keep hurting you with the truth until you fucking stop or you go to prison. One of the two. And some of you still have a choice. Some of you don't.
Yeah.
But some of you still have a choice about what side of fucking history you're going to be on.
That's
so
right.
why don't you fucking make the right one? Thank you for coming.
Thank you
to my TED Talk.
Thank you, Jim.
That's the best TED Talk so far.
Well, they're all so good, but yeah, I give that a 11 out of 10. I watch these videos because I keep up with your reporting, and in my head, I just keep hearing echoes of "the lady doth protest too much," particularly when I hear Flynn trying to discount what he's saying. Bannon, it's chilling to listen to him because of the Putin proxy, Steve Bannon, and the various other proxies he is. When he speaks, he repeats the propaganda within the same 30 seconds to 45 seconds. He's clearly a professional, but the projection involved with the psychotic cavalcade of disinformation. I'm taking notes as you're speaking. Psychotic cavalcade, that's amazing. So thank you for that hellscape. It was really incredible. I'm in a war in real time right now with Walt Schaub, who used to have a big government job in the ethics department, because he wrote something, about dead soldiers that was, I felt, I said, what the fuck's wrong with you? And without going into any detail, I just want to say that Peter Frampton has come to my emotional rescue. And I've told you guys before, the sweetest man on 2 feet, the most incredible musician I ever interviewed was Peter Frampton. He's a lovely human being. And Peter, this is our request for you to come on our show and talk about your music and some of your activism, because you are important and I love you. And now, speaking of important and people we love, we have Zarina Zabrisky reporting from Ukraine. She just went to Chernobyl. Oh my God. And let's go ahead and watch a clip of her in Chernobyl before we get into our interview.
Hi, I'm Zarina Zabrisky, reporting from Chernobyl nuclear power plant station. Behind me, you see the confinement. This is where the nuclear reactor that exploded in 1986 is currently buried. Unfortunately, we cannot show you anymore right now because of the war.
Wow, let's bring Zarina in and put her in the big box. Yeah.
Zarina in the big box. Hi, Zarina.
Hi there. Hi, Heidi. Hi, Jim.
We are so
Hey,
happy
you're such
to
a
have
warrior.
you back. We are so, yes, as Jim said, we are so happy to have you back. And, I am obsessed with Chernobyl, and I've always wanted to go there. And you must tell our viewers what it was like to actually be there, particularly in this time of heightened, nuclear terrorism, where we all are, on kind of the edge of our seats to see how things play out. What was it like for you to be there?
Well, thank you so much for having me on and for running this brilliant show. And I appreciate the chance to speak to the audience. And yes, it's a very special show for me too. Today is 9/11, and I will share in passing that I was booked to fly on the United 93 actually, and changed the in the last moment.
Wow.
And then
Holy shit.
I know. And then
Wow.
for a long time, I wasn't processing it. It was just, at the time there was a lot of logistics. And then for many years, I just didn't speak or didn't think about that. And then about 7 years ago, I suddenly realized what it meant. And I spoke to other people and people who've been to similar situations, like they were supposed to be in the building and they didn't go or such. They also said that there was this gap of time that you need to come to realization that it actually could have happened. So it didn't happen. And I feel like, I don't feel like I'm on a mission. I feel like I am being me, but you certainly have the sense that you've been given another chance. And
Wow.
being around Chernobyl, now that's going to sound really ridiculous, like I'm making stories because I'm a writer and I do make stories, but it's true. I was around Chernobyl in 1986 as well. I wasn't at Chernobyl, mind you, but I was 60 kilometers away from it. And because the Soviet government wasn't telling us anything about it, we hardly knew that anything happened.
Right.
I'm gonna tell you it's about the truth. So the truth was that at the time I was a very difficult teenager. It was just my excuse. It was the Soviet Union collapsing. So I was doing drugs and I was dating that boy from a village, Ukrainian village close by to Chernobyl, and we were going there to pick up poppies because we were taking them back to Leningrad to make homemade heroin.
Wow.
And I wrote about that before. And as it turns out, it was laced with radioactive nuclides.
Oh my God.
But in
That's
reality,
some powerful homemade heroin.
I mean, the truth is that the wind was blowing in the other direction. It wasn't blowing in the direction of Kulikovka. So we most likely just didn't get any. Or if we did, I'm just very, very invincible at this point.
Right on, Zarina. Oh my God.
Anyway, so
That's our breaking news. Our show here is done here. We're done. I'm dead.
I actually have many more stories, but I mean, it just so it goes. I guess that's why I'm a writer, because stories always find me,
Yeah.
or the other way around. I'm not sure, but the fact is that I have. I did not marry this boy. I mean, and eventually I stopped doing drugs, and that's why I'm still here, I think.
Right.
Props for not marrying the radioactive heroin guy. Good job.
That story also has a continuation, but maybe next time. So now let's.
I love this. I love this show so much. Oh my God.
So as you can imagine, I always was interested in Chernobyl with all that happening at that time. So I kept writing about it. I have a long short story about it in my book called Explosion, after the explosion of 1986. And I put together the collection of memoirs of people who were around, just like myself, and what happened to them and their stories. That was very interesting. And since the beginning of the war, when the Russians, the first thing that they did, they entered Chernobyl station and they seized it. And there are videos actually of the armored vehicles driving into the Pripyat settlement, the satellite town, and then from there on to the station and arriving at the little square inside. So I wanted to research that further because at the time I interviewed an engineer from Chernobyl, and we were trying to make the story known, and no major publication would publish it at the time. And finally, good old Byline Times published it, and it's still there. It's from the very beginning of the war, an exclusive interview with an engineer. I just wanted to go back there, speak to more people, because right now I'm exploring Zaporizhia nuclear power plant theme and what can happen there. I've already written a number of articles and did shows with Bywire News, and I'm doing more because the situation right now is critical. And these two power plants go hand in hand, and there are actually other nuclear power plants in Ukraine as well, but luckily the Russians didn't make it there. So it was kind of a journey. I first went to the light town of Slavutic, being kind of stupid and not. I already came from Zaporizhia, and we were being bombed there, and it was intense. So I wasn't thinking very clearly, and it didn't occur to me that the train that all the employees take to go to the station runs through the territory of Belarus. And obviously it wouldn't be right.
Wow.
Belarus is sided
Oh my
with.
God.
So this 40 minutes ride that the employees had turned into a 6-hour bus ride going through Kiev.
Thank God, though. Thank God.
Well, yeah, they wouldn't be. It stopped on the day that the war started, and it never resumed. But I was very lucky that I went to Slavutic, because I got to speak there to 6 people who worked at the station, some at the time of occupation. And they told me how it was, how they worked at the gunpoint, how they slept in the chairs for about a month, and how they still managed to run the station despite being in this condition. Now, the question that I get writing about Chernobyl is important to touch upon, because people ask, well, Chernobyl exploded in 1986, and after that it wasn't functioning, they take it off the operation and it's not dangerous anymore. Well, this is a major misconception. So to put it very, very simply, in a plain way, the nuclear power plant at Chernobyl was still producing electricity until 2002, and was able to do so because there were other reactors. There were 5 reactors. It was taken off production, and as I was told, it was mainly a political decision. I wouldn't go into details because I just don't know enough, but it was certainly capable of producing electricity. Not without a risk, but possible. So, but for the last 20 years, it does not function as a nuclear power plant generating electricity. However, what's the most important thing is that any nuclear power plant has the nuclear core reactor, and it has the nuclear power waste. It doesn't go anywhere. And the reaction of the production of the electricity is going on basically forever. I've been given the number of up to 300,000 years.
Yeah.
So the uranium that is going, that is falling apart, basically, yes, that's the article, continues to fall apart no matter what, whether we produce electricity or not. And in order to maintain it safely, it needs to be cooled. This nuclear waste needs to be in special containers, and these containers could be kept, could be cooled either with the air or with the water. And in Chernobyl, they have both facilities. They have air cooling system and water cooling system. In Zaporizhia, they only use water. So in order for these systems to maintain the nuclear waste cold enough, they need to be hooked up to electricity. That's very simple, right? Any chunk, like it needs to be plugged in. One of the engineers explained it to me as a refrigerator. It must be always on. If it's off, everything stops working, and this nuclear power waste can overheat, and then there will be the radiation leak. And if it leaks in the atmosphere, then with the wind, it goes wherever the wind blows, and it can go around Chernobyl area or Zaporizhia area, right? It can go to Russia. And here comes another question. Why would Putin do it if he knows it could blow to Russia? The answer is very simple. He doesn't care. He sends thousands and tens of thousands of soldiers to sure death. He can't care less about his population. So we've
That's
addressed.
right.
Well, I mean,
So
all we
That's
have to
right.
do is go back to the FSB bombings of the apartment buildings when
Yes.
Putin rose to power that he blamed on Chechen rebels.
Yes.
The guy's
Thank
been
Yes.
doing it
We know he
over
doesn't
and over
care.
and over.
Exactly.
Yes.
He's perfectly capable of a false flag against his own people, and has been doing it,
Yes.
doing that sort of thing for a long time. I wanted to ask you. We talked a little bit before about this. Is just there are two things that I see happening. One is that Putin is losing. He's losing the kinetic war. But the other thing is that means he's getting more desperate, right? Which means that situations like the power plant at Zaporizhzhia become even more important. So I just wanted to get your feeling about sort of how these dynamics are working, because, and you tell us, but it seems to me that Ukraine is winning against Putin's army. And since Putin is a totalist dictator, my concern is that means he's going to start, pulling some very dangerous tricks, and Zaporizhzhia looks like a candidate.
Well, I mean, I completely agree. Anybody who can think logically will come to the same conclusion. I think it's only fair to say that. And I want to return to it, but I do want to make a little loop and finish my story about Chernobyl.
Oh, yes.
And then get to Zaporizhzhia and to the counteroffensive. But I really wanted to share the story of the city of Chernobyl as well, which survived the explosion. And there were houses there that were buried. They were literally buried under the ground, like people, like coffins. And I met people, and I interviewed them, and the interviews will be forthcoming on the Bywire news podcast that I just started. They're incredible people. They are older people. They're in their 80s. So they lived. One lady was born in 1939, and she remembered the World War II. She remembered how they were fleeing the Germans, the Nazis at the time. And so she survived that. She was drowning, fleeing around when she was still 5. Then she came back to Chernobyl because her whole family, her grandparents lived there. And they lived there until 1986, when the reactor exploded and the disaster happened, and they had to leave their houses, and she witnessed her house being buried. And she and her husband built another house, and then in the 90s, it had to be buried as well, because there was just very high radioactive indicators and they could live there. So they moved to the third house, and now she's in her 80s, and now the Russians arrived. And they ride around into these heavy vehicles, raising radioactive dust all around, and raising the radioactive phone. And they still don't want to leave. They don't want to go anywhere. They say that, it's different here. And I have to say that they looked quite healthy and very well. And they had all these dogs and cats, and you're not supposed to pet those dogs or those cats, because they could be radioactive. And during the Russian occupation, these people didn't have running water. They only had wells. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have internet. They were cut off the world. They still didn't want to leave. And it's a very special feeling. The city is 300 years old. There's a church. There's a Jewish cemetery, because that's their should I say motherland? That's the birthplace of Tversky dynasty of the Hasids, one of the wings of the Hasids, and it has a special significance to Jews. So we went to the tombs of 2 tzaddiks, which are Jewish saints, and the door was open. But my guide said, like Russians left mines everywhere, so we don't know. shall we go? I can open the door, she says, and then I will be covered by the iron, and you can step, and hopefully it won't explode. I said, you know what? It's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
We're just not gonna do.
Hi-Fi, can you show some of the pictures? I was so moved, Zarina,
Yes.
when you shared the picture of that fox with me, that the mournful eyes, I don't know what was going on there, but I felt like that was just such an iconic image. If you have some of the images that I sent you in the rundown, I don't know if you can access them or not. We can always cut them in, but we'll cut them in. We'll talk about a few things. I was so moved because, again, I remember reading reports about the soldiers who had to go shoot the animals and how hard that was for them. And then, of course, I was obsessed with learning about the bio robots who risk their lives for small pay to go, bury and create the, what ultimately became the sarcophagus. And there's just so much incredible history. And I also, with Gorbachev just passing, I remember people remember him for different things, but I remember him as the guy not calling off the May Day parade and putting all those people at risk. And is there a way for you to summarize just the feeling of being there, from the fox to the, to the amusement ride, which was like lost in time? There's just something so incredibly profound and melancholy when I look at those images and I hear your reports.
It's true. You really get it, Heidi. And I was there when Gorbachev died. What a coincidence. I was in that town that is totally 80s. It was built in the 80s to liquidate the disaster. It's called Slavutich. And it preserved this 80s Soviet feeling. It's totally Soviet.
Wow.
And then we went in a few days after that, when I got my pass, which wasn't easy, it was very difficult. We went into Pripyat, and that is just complete chunk of 80s. There you see, like, I'll send you a picture. There's a rubber ball, cracked in the middle, which kind of looks like a boss hen, like from the Garden of Delight. This, which was there for 30 years. It was just sitting there because nobody touches anything except for, again, the Russian military who were looting. And I'll see the pictures. There were, I saw them with my own eyes, and that's the only reason I believe it. There were 2 toilet seats that the Russian soldiers pulled out of the radioactive apartments in Pripyat, abandoned 30 years ago. They were, and then after that, either they didn't have space in their cars, or they realized, which is unlikely, that this was actually deadly stuff, but those toilet seats are sitting there in the central square. And so at some point I was there in the middle of the square, and there was this on top of one of the buildings, there was the Soviet emblem, the Soviet coat of arms. Which I remember, of course, from being a child, and it doesn't bring back warm or fuzzy feelings. It brings back, oh, goodness.
Trauma.
And there was my guide, like, you can't walk around alone, like they assign a guide to you. But she was waiting by the car, and I was there all alone, looking at this Soviet coat of arms with Gorbachev just passing away. And it certainly felt like the end of the era and the end of the world. And I am at the end of the world. And now that I'm saying this, like, the Queen just died too, and my first thought, the end of the era. There's definitely something very poignant and like, you almost, it's tangible, like in the air, like the end of all this.
Well, there's a song by Scorpion, which I think is applicable. It's Winds of Change, right? Let's just hope they're not radioactive.
Well, yeah. I mean, I remember at the time, this is a very emotional song for me, and as to many others, because there was a brief moment when we were hoping that things would change. And that was precisely in 1991 when the coup happened, and in August, when the communists tried to take the power over and bring the Soviet Union back. And they didn't at the time, when the Swan Lake was playing around the clock on the TV. I remember that because we were stepping out. We were in the at the central square of St. Petersburg at the barricades, we were like smoking pot at the barricades, and
Weren't we all?
What else are you
Weren't
supposed
we
to do with
all?
the barricades?
But
Come
we
on,
were-
they're barricades.
Yeah, we were shooting, but not. But the thing is that they did take over. Those communists, they didn't take over at the time. They took over, and they completely took over now, because Putin also was there. He was on the other side of the barricades. He was in the building, the central building in the square. And so it just took him, 32 years, 30 years, 31 years, right? To take it back. And now he took the whole Russia back, and now he wants the whole world back, but he's not getting it. And that's, Jim, back to your question. What will he do when he's not getting what he wants? Because at this point, he's just a delusional maniac and serial killer who is not used to have a no as an answer. He wants to have it, and he wants to have it now. And like I believe we might have mentioned it here on some other podcast or show, I think with Greg earlier, we discussed that. He's like this oligarch in a movie. What was that movie? Not Inception, but the latest movie by the same director. Anyway, there was this oligarch who's sick. He has cancer. And when he goes, he wants to take the whole world with him.
Yeah.
And to me, this is very much Putin. Whether he has cancer or some other disease is not relative, because he's got to go at some point.
I think it's critically important, Zarina, that the leaders in St. Petersburg signed their name publicly to a document that Putin must be charged with treason. I believe I heard you say that there may also be some additional support from some officials in Moscow. One of two things will happen. It'll either, these guys will be made examples of and be defenestrated, or maybe there will be more of a groundswell, and we don't know how this story ends. But I think it's very important for people globally to know that for the first time that I can remember in covering this, there are people actually putting their names out there saying this guy needs to be charged with treason. He's destroying our country. He's killing young men. He's doing this war that nobody wants. I mean, they used words that eviscerated him. So,
you know what? I'm very skeptical about that. I'm very, very skeptical about that. I know the system. I haven't been there for decades, but you don't forget that. Something like this, it could be a part of some provocation or
a double bluff. Yeah.
The reason, that they are still around. I believe it when I see it. Either he's in a really weak position and he's gone, and therefore these councils are allowed to voice that, or there is some other plot or subplot. I mean, there's
some fuckery afoot.
Can I remind everyone that if you think about Turkey, remember Erdogan setting up the coup to solidify his position as head of Turkish government? Putin could be trying to pull the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it might be multi-layered. Like, these people might really be against Putin, but they are allowed to say that, and this was allowed to air. What people do and what we get to see, as they say in Odesa, are two big differences. There are a lot of people protesting, but we don't get to see it because it's silence. This, for some reason, wasn't silence. Just as Ovsyannikova protesting the war on the first channel, on the Kremlin-funded television. Things like this, they just don't happen without reason. So, I mean, who the hell knows with these people? You can't. That's also coming back to your question, Jim. We can't really answer for them. We can't predict anything because they are unpredictable. It's more like a conceptual, philosophical question. is like dealing with a different species, or just someone whose mental health is out of order, or someone whose behavior we can't predict. I mean, I don't
Yeah, he's not. He is a totalist, right, and a dictator. I wanted to ask you just briefly about Dugan and his daughter. There's obviously been a lot of speculation, right, about who did that, and why she was why he was targeted. It's always hard to tell, right? Yeah. Was he really targeted, or was she really targeted? So I'm just curious what the kind of reaction has been in Ukraine, and if you had any insight, because I think that is a really, really interesting event that took place, and I think it's more important than most people realize.
I wrote 2 articles. You could see one at Euromaidan Press and another one at Bywire, very long, because I've been writing about Dugin forever. There's another one at Byline Times from a long time ago. So what's important for Ukraine is that Dugin in 2014 said this infamous, as for Ukrainians, kill, kill, kill. He said it on air. He said, as a professor, I'm telling you, kill, kill, kill. And at the time, that was even too radical, even for the Kremlin. So he lost his position as a professor at the Moscow State University. That wouldn't have happened now. But at the time, they were still trying to, keep appearances. So he lost his job. But his philosophy is of a Russian world is Putin's doctrine. And that's why he's been labeled Russian Putin's brain. Whether he's Putin's brain or not, there are different opinions. Maybe it's not exactly the right term, but his doctrine is definitely being used. That's a long one with a long account with every detail you want to know about Dugin himself and his philosophy. And his principles, which is Eurasian principles, are at the base of Putin's foreign policy. And I once did this Twitter thread on following Putin's address to one of his bodies of power. I forgot which one, to Duma maybe. Every year, ever since he came to power, he makes this speech. And every year, basically, almost every year, he's been referring to Eurasianism one way or another. And just to make it simple, it's kind of bringing back the Soviet Union, bringing back the major states like Ukraine, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Russia, and expanding it. The idea of Eurasianism is about 100 years old. It was founded in 1917 by the Russian emigres who ran away after the revolution. And it was another crazy idea. Like Russians' specialty are crazy ideas. So that one was that was Eurasianism, that the whole continent of Europe and the continent of Asia should unite, and it was from Lisbon to Vladivostok, one empire, with guess whom at the core? Surprise!
With Moscow as the third Rome, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And that's also the Russian Orthodox Church and Kirill and all those guys, have been supporting that as well.
Right. And these guys simplified it and boiled down so that the common people can understand it, because Dugin's ideas and theories are very arcane, and like
he also includes a lot of occult stuff, right?
Yes, they're very occult, very
syncretism is necessary for a cult.
Just like with the Nazi, they were very pro and had a predilection for occultism. So it's very similar. He was self-proclaimed, self-confirmed neo-Nazi in his youth. He had a nickname named after, I forgot his name, but the guy was infamous for torturing the Jews himself. So that was Dugin's nickname as a young man.
He also started the Nazbol party, right? Yes. I mean, which the logo was basically the Third Reich, wings. I mean, they're not hiding anything. It was a Nazi Bolshevik party.
He was nicknamed Mengele. Was it Mengele?
I think
The
so.
doctor? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really incredible.
Yeah. The
Um,
details are in the article too. I wrote it a while ago. So, so it's kind of ironic that the fascist doctrine of the Russian world and Eurasian is at the core of Putin's foreign policy while masquerading as anti-Nazi. It's just so screwed up, and like it screws it.
Well, it's projection,
From
and
my
you used a
saying
word.
it. Yeah, it's like
You
F
you
up your
used a
brain.
word I thought was great. Marskova was the Russian military doctrine where they set something
Oh,
up.
masquerading. They're
Yeah.
masquerading.
Masquerading. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Yeah, but
Brilliant.
I mean,
So-
I'm just like, I'm trying to not curse on your beautiful
Oh,
program.
we actually do it all the time.
Well, you can fucking curse all you want. Seriously.
I'm
God damn
the
it, Jim!
worst.
Watch your fucking
Then
mouth.
it's easy. I was trying to think of a nicer word, but they fuck up with your brain.
Yeah,
That
right.
you know. So
Right.
That's
yeah.
actually
It's a mind fuck. That's what the
That's
whole
right.
thing
it's
is.
That's
exactly,
right.
it's a mind fuck. And so therefore it's very hard to analyze it. But getting back to the daughter and to the whole murder scenario, there were several versions going around, and it's also their tactic is to have many versions to confuse.
Yes, right.
And they were running like some were really crazy that Dugin wanted to sacrifice his daughter on the altar of his motherland, which if you read his books,
Wouldn't
will
be
make
surprising.
sense.
That's probably the most logical one I've heard because, they throw it out there and see what sticks.
Somebody quoted his article where he speaks about sacrificing daughters specifically. It could be just a coincidence. I mean, after all, he is human. I mean, he's a total lunatic, but he's human. So I don't know. There, of course, the official version in which the Ukrainian women, a mother and a daughter, arrived to Moscow with the Luhansk, I think, People's Republic numbers.
Yeah.
Then they drive around with Kazakh numbers, and then they still drive around with Ukrainian numbers. I'm sorry, the license plate.
Yeah.
The Ukrainian license plate after just committing a murder. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, that makes total sense. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, everybody would do that. And then, of course, the FSB is following them. They have the video footage. They know what they've done, but they do not stop them for unknown to us reason. And then somehow they are connected to Azov. I mean, that didn't make any sense. That just didn't stand. They were just...
Well, Azov Battalion is, those are the Nazis, right? I mean, they're the monsters that Russia needs.
Yeah, well, I mean, we won't go into that now because we're already covering a lot. But one of the two big themes, one that I'm covering right now is the nuclear power plant stations.
Yeah.
And another one, the Azov Battalion and the prisoners of wars. I interviewed about 10 or 15 wives and sisters and mothers and families.
Yeah.
Azov Battalion, and I interviewed some experts on about their Nazi origin, like what is the real situation. So as soon as I'm done with the power plant stations, I will be writing my article on that, and there are already interviews with them. It's a very interesting topic, but of course, whatever the true origin of Azov is irrelevant to the way that the Putin's regime using them. They taken them as a scapegoat. They could be astronauts. It doesn't matter whether there were any Nazis in the beginning or not. Again, it's important to us because we want to know the truth and the facts. But to Putin and for their propaganda machine, it doesn't matter because they just need them as fascists. So, so the whole loop with Daria Dugina being connected to Azov as a revenge because the Putin's government wanted to start running the tribunals in Mariupol. They were building the cages there. Right now, I think they're too distracted and too desperate to go for it. So we just don't know where these people are. A lot of them, 53 of them, were killed in Alenivka. And by now it's pretty clear that it wasn't HIMARS launched by the Ukrainians. And it's pretty clear that it was another terrorist attack ran by the Russians in Alenivka, most likely to conceal the torture and the human rights violations and the war crimes, but also maybe to provoke, I'm thinking, and also get the fuck knows what else. So again, connected to Daria Dugin. And for those who might have not heard, fair enough, about 3 weeks ago, I believe, there was a murder by assassination of the daughter of the most prominent ideologue of the Kremlin, named Alexander Dugin.
Yes.
His daughter wasn't an innocent victim. She was a young woman. She was 31, but she was also a propagandist. She's
vicious. Vicious.
Yes. She also spoke about genocide of the Ukrainian people on the TV. She was a prominent propaganda figure. So her car exploded after she and her father were at some festival of the pretty far right conservative values, and on the way back she was exploded, which again didn't come together at all, because according to the first reports, her body was burned beyond the recognition, and then at the funeral they showed her intact in the coffin, and moreover there are pictures of Dugin smiling, talking to somebody at the funeral, which made a lot of people, including myself, suspect that actually Daria Dugin is alive and well and somewhere, I don't know, Swiss villa.
And this is the whole mind fuck.
That's right.
Here.
That's
what
right.
really happened? They're taking the fabric of reality and twisting it.
Right.
And they're twisting it inside people's minds, and this is how we end up with the world.
And this is our war. This is why we do the show. We are trying very much to defend truth and to have truth see sunlight and to be able to cut through these narratives. And what you just described is the absolute fuckery of the propagandists and that zone of shit that we talk about. Before we talk about the counteroffensive, we just have a few more minutes. I want you just to please give me a few words on the image of that fox at Chernobyl with those mournful eyes. There's something to that I can't stop looking at it. What is it that is touching my heart so much? And why is that one of the images that you are sharing with the world?
Well, Heidi, the fox appeared on the road on our way back. It just stood on the road, very pretty, and looked at us and wouldn't go away. And then it looked into my eyes and sneezed and trotted away. However, as pitiful as it looked, something in me thinks that is actually not such a miserable being. After I shared this picture with my Ukrainian friends, they sent me the Facebook page for the fox. Apparently, he's not just random, unknown, anonymous fox. The fox has a name. His name is Simeon. And he's very friendly with people, radioactive as he is. He likes to be fed. He likes to follow tourists, because before the war, there were a number of tourist buses coming over. And so in a way, maybe the fox, like Putin's government, is putting on a show, looking all miserable and profound, while in reality, it just misses the people and the tourists who used to feed him. I don't know.
Did you say his name is Semyon?
Oh my God!
I know what you're gonna say. It's different.
There is something.
Oh, it's different.
Beautiful.
All right. You know who I'm thinking of, though.
There is something so beautiful.
All right.
Whether the fox has mournful eyes, whether the fox is tricking people into feeding it, whatever it is, there's something so beautiful, and it stuns me every time I see the image. Now, what I very much like, look at that, look at that.
We
Look at
need to
those
have a
eyes.
poll from our viewers. Is the fox faking it, or is
we can't ask any binary questions when it comes to this stuff. We don't know. Thank you so much for sharing, Semyon, with our show in the world. Now let's talk a bit about the counteroffensive. That is breaking news. What can you tell us? And then I have two more things for you after that, and we'll let you go.
Right. Well, as you all know, we as press have to be patient, which is very difficult, and we have to be mum and keep silent on some advances that we see, but are still unconfirmed. I am a very strong believer in following this practice because the reason for it is that we are saving lives. They're Ukrainian defenders, they're soldiers, they're brave people who went to defend their land, sometimes without any training, without any military education. And they are there liberating the land, fighting. And the reason it is dangerous for them is that because the Russians are known to open the fire or reattack or put in danger the villages that are announced as under Ukrainian control. It's been confirmed, and it's been a practice for as long as this full-scale invasion has been going on. So the Ministry of the commandment of the Ukrainian army asks everybody not to jump over their heads and not to share any information until it is official. So that is my main thing on counter.
Thank you.
So if we have some people who are following everything and reading and translating the posts and telegrams, please don't be smart and share the information. If you speak to someone, don't share this information. You'll be helping Ukraine to win. If you want to help Russia, then you be sharing that, but then we will wait. So please don't do that. And I obviously won't do that. If people want to read what is officially happening on a daily basis, I'm honored to be writing daily reports, alternating with my colleague who is a former Norwegian military attaché to Ukraine. He's brilliant. He writes more detailed reports. Mine are a little different. We have two different takes, but we alternate. So you have every other day.
Great.
And if you don't have a lot of time to read a very long, especially Hans report, there's a small gray box on top with about 5 sentences, and it has all the major events of the day that are confirmed and okay to share. And
where do we find that? Where do we find that?
Euromaidan Press.
Yes, Euromaidan. Great.
They are coming every day, and this gray box takes probably the longest to write because you need to sort out through all the events and put there the main events. So they are right there. You can use it and see what is happening. And so you can inquire for today and see the exact numbers. What I wanted to share is more interesting strategic thing. I'm listening to a lot of experts and interviewing military experts and political analysts. And what's interesting to me is the whole strategic game, the strategy of the war, because what we've seen yesterday was a brilliant strategic move. And I already shared it with Adrian on the Byline Time podcast, but I hope it's okay if I repeat it because we have different audiences. It just needs to be repeated so people hear it. So it was a brilliant strategic move because Ukrainians ran a disinformation campaign. They do it too. Everybody does it. And it's actually okay for the military course. While everybody was talking about the counteroffensive in Kherson, like Kherson, where is it starting? Or they're just bluffing. They're not doing anything in Kherson. Nevertheless, the Russians got conditioned into thinking that Ukrainians will try to attack in the Kherson Oblast, and they pulled a lot of their forces and supplies, which is important, to the southern direction. And I actually have the map here. I brought here. So this is the map of Ukraine. And so speaking, here's Kherson. I don't know if you could see it, and I can send the map
Yes,
to,
we
but
can. Thank you.
so it's in the south. It's important. And then we have Kharkov, which is right here. So all you need to see the distance, right? So Russians are putting their forces here, but the Ukrainians are preparing their, I can see it because I'm showing to you, they are preparing their main attack here, but also here in Donetsk, which is the major direction and announced as a goal for Putin's special operation. So of course they can't immediately, it's not like they can fly planes or anything. They can't move the forces back. And this is one part of the operation. Another one that starting a while ago, ever since Americans started to provide and supply HIMARS and the long-range weapons to Ukrainians. Ukrainians started to target their warehouses and oil depots and ammunition depots, and basically breaking down the logistics chains. So now the Russians are spread over. They're not in the right area. They are in the south. They are not paying attention in the north, and they're running out of the supplies. And at this point, their equipment, of which they have a lot, is not good for them. That's actually more of an obstacle to them, and they have to leave their equipment. And there's of course a lot of jokes going around that the Russians are the best suppliers of the weapons to Ukrainians.
That was where I was going next.
And they run away either on foot, or they have to borrow or steal the civilians' cars, or they have to retreat, leaving everything behind because they just simply cannot drive it.
Wow.
And that's what's happening, because they did not expect it in Kharkov direction, and they got really demoralized. And that's the number 3, which is really important here, because what they tried to teach us at the military department in my university, and I slept right through it, but some members is that morale is the most important thing. I remember that. That's why special propaganda, to demoralize the army and population of adversary. And instead they demoralize in their own army and our population, I'm sure.
Right.
Because they don't have their vehicles, their equipment, their weapons. They did not expect this advance, this attack. They're dying by hundreds, by thousands maybe, and they have to run. And once the running starts, and it's like if you read War and Peace, it's all there too.
Yeah. That is exactly where I was going, Zarina, that I wanted to end it on, and I hope that you will indulge me. I've been watching all of your reporting, reading and watching everything, and there is a moment where you use a captured tank in Kiev in order to film your reporting, and you prop up your phone on that tank. And this was part of a celebration. And if you can describe that moment for us, because that was a moment for me.
Well, that was my personal celebration too, to prop my phone on their tank. But I think that was also a very smart move to install, and I will send you some footage of that too, so you can see what it is. So the people who came to celebrate the 31st anniversary of Ukrainian independence, see the broken equipment, the parade of broken equipment, putting the war in the past. It felt as if the victory already happened, because there's a celebration, the equipment is broken, the Russians didn't make it. And I think it was also a turning point. And the morale, again, is so important, because you see, if you follow me on Twitter, I share a lot of dancing videos. I think it's my specialty. After nuclear power stations, dancing videos is So, I mean, one is going viral now. Last time I looked, there was 250,000 views. And it's just a very crappy videos. It's just because people are dancing with so much soul and so much vigor and joy, because they feel that they won already. And of course, it's not delusional. On the one hand, the Russians continue bombing. And I mean, we started, oh, great. Just 10 minutes ago, about an hour and a half air raid ended in Odesa. Like most of our shows was happening during the air raid.
Wow.
While this happens, a lot of people, each time they target a city in Ukraine, somebody dies. And it's terrible. They're just innocent, peaceful civilian people like you and I, Jim, Hi-Fi. They're sitting at home drinking coffee, and then the Russian rocket flies and kills them. And it's happening on a daily basis. It's happening now as I'm talking. And it's horrible. And this is why they are hated. That's why the Russians are being hated in the whole world. The Ukrainians hate them. I hate them. I mean, how can you not hate them? They're killing children daily, on a daily basis. It's a normal human reaction to have such anger, such fury at that. But on the other hand, knowing all that, with this fury, with no fear, I haven't seen fear anywhere. And I of Ukraine, I went, just so that you know, the last 40 days, I went from Odesa here and I roamed around here.
Wow.
Seen one person who would be afraid or who would say, oh, we should give our land back or we should stop the war. Not one.
Right.
Children, grandmas, grandpas, men, women, I don't know, dogs and cats. Nobody wants the Soviet Union back. And that brings us back into the loop to the whole Soviet Union, because the older people remember how bad it was. And the younger people have been a part of Europe for a long time. They don't want to go back to some stupid communist crap, which was it was a prison. I was growing up in a prison. This is why I was doing drugs, because it was unbearable to be there. Everything was a lie. It was dark. We didn't have any joy. You know, like as soon as it was over, I stopped doing drugs. I haven't been doing them ever since I moved to America, because so yeah, well, to kind of round it all up and finish it up, yeah, the Ukrainian people spirit is very high now. Everybody's celebrating while grieving and mourning for those who are sacrificing their lives for this freedom, for this opportunity to dance in the streets and to speak up. And there's determination to drive the Russians all the way back and to end this war on Ukrainian terms.
Sounds good to me. Let's go. Let's fucking
all the way
go.
back to Moscow, man. Just go.
Oh, Zarina. Oh my God, you are so special. We are so grateful to have you on our show, bringing us the news.
And thank you for knowing what you know, for paying attention, for being interested. It means so much. Not everybody is, and it's appreciated very much. Everybody who cares, everybody who is compassionate. I mean, I guess I feel like I've been told by Ukrainian people many times to express it, so I am okay to represent. On behalf of the Ukrainian people, I thank everyone who's listening, who's paying attention, who cares, and who helps Ukraine to win.
Well, everybody here who's listening is with you. So
Yes,
thank you
that's
for
right.
what you're doing. And, you know, we care about what's going on in the world, in Ukraine, and with you. So thank you again.
Thank you. Slava Ukraini.
Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава.
Wow. Well, I love her, as I know you guys do too. And being an independent journalist, I can tell you it does not pay, not enough to pay a living wage. All our viewers can support her and send her some coffee money and do whatever they can directly to her PayPal if you have it, Zarina Zabrisky at gmail.com. She's given me the permission to do that. Our friends have been very generous. I bought her a bus ticket back from Chernobyl. It doesn't cost much money. We can all help people like her continue the very important work that they're doing. And God, she's so moving. I mean, her passion and her directness and her experience is so invaluable to our understanding, I think, of what's happening. And I'm very grateful to you guys for participating in this. And as she mentioned, it is 9/11. It's a day of remembrance. And my friend Jackie sent us some images from New York. And why don't we let those take us out?
Only my life. You